From hiking an active volcano and trekking forests to making chocolate and touring a sustainable farm, the Hawaii Beyond the Classroom Study Away program has it all. Coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome back to the Honor Roll Podcast, the flagship podcast for the Judy Genshaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Reva Gandhi, a fourth year studying biomedical sciences and public health. Today, my co-host is Fabiana Requena, a fourth year studying marketing and business analytics. Thanks for being here, Fabi. How's your week going?
It's been great. I'm excited to be here on the podcast, obviously, with you.
It's going to be another great episode. And as always, we like to start off with one big question. So my question this week is, what is the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Ooh, that's a good question, Reva. I would say the most adventurous thing I've done is, my family is from Peru, and we live very close to the Amazonian rainforest. So I have gone hiking through there's not really trails. It's kind of just like paths, I guess. But it's really beautiful. You see all kinds of fauna and flora. I crossed this river stream through this little tin boat, and it was probably not safe, but it was super fun. What about you?
That sounds so cool. That sounds gorgeous. Mine's actually along a similar vein. When I was in Austria with one of my closest friends, we rented bikes and we went biking along these two lakes. And when we rented the bikes, the guy told us, there's a little part that you might have to push your bike uphill. It wasn't just a little part. It was an entire mountain. So we went straight up a mountain, pushing our bikes up because it was too steep to ride them. Yeah. But the view on the top, it was supposedly the spot where you could see one of the angels had thrown their hammer or something, and it created this church. And so there was a little opening in the trees where you could see the church and the river and the lakes. But then up at the top, there were so many trees and so much just nature and a few small houses. And then, of course, we had to go back down. And as soon as we got to the bottom, it did start raining. So we biked the remainder 30 miles back in the pouring rain. It was a crazy experience. But it was so much fun.
It was worth it.
Yeah, it was definitely worth it. And I just love those fun memories that you get abroad, especially, through a study abroad or a study away. And speaking of, going abroad or staying local, this week we're talking about local travels and life on the big island of Hawaii as we talk to Honors Advisor and National Merit Coordinator Audra Santerre and Associate Professor in the Muma College of Business, Dr. Brooke Hansen, along with Honors student Naja Daye, about their experience living sustainably on the Hawaii Beyond the Classroom Study Away program. Coming up next, stay tuned.
What if the highlight of your college experience took place halfway around the world? With the Judy Genshaft Honors College, study abroad can be a part of your academic journey no matter your major. Honors College offers unique study abroad opportunities plus funding that can make international travel more affordable. Imagine learning the art of ceremonial matcha in Japan, researching marine ecosystems in the Bahamas, and exploring city life in South Korea. Honors students are building connections, expanding their horizons, and making lifelong memories. Are you ready to start your next adventure? Visit our Honors website to explore our programs, connect with your Honors advisor, and start planning your study abroad experience today.
We're here with Audra Santerre, Dr. Brooke Hansen, and Naja Daye. Thank you for joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I am Naja Daye. I am a senior at the University of South Florida. I'm a biology major with a minor in education.
And I'm Dr. Brooke Hansen. I'm the director of the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program in the Muma College of Business.
And I'm Audra Santerre. I'm the National Merit Scholars Coordinator here in the Judy Genshaft Honors College.
You are all on the show today, and we're excited to talk about the Hawaii Beyond the Classroom Study Away program, which happened this past spring. Audra and Dr. Hansen, can you give us a little bit of an overview of the program?
Our Hawaii program is really geared towards study away. It is kind of like a study abroad because Hawaii is quite far away. And what we're trying to do is we're really trying to teach students about the transformational power of travel. And Hawaii is the perfect living learning laboratory because it touches every major that our students have. We can learn about tourism, sustainability, culture, history, marine science, and the list goes on and on.
What kind of inspired you to create and lead the program?
I think the inspiration comes from my previous experience where I led tours and classes in Hawaii for 16 years because I fell in love with Hawaii. And that's when I was at Ithaca College, and then later I transitioned here to USF, and I was always looking for a way to resurrect that experience because it was amazing for our students. And I randomly met Audra and found out that she too had some serious connections to Hawaii. And as soon as we found each other, we knew that teaching an honors class and bringing students to Hawaii was our destiny.
Yes, and to add to that, a fun fact, I had brought the idea to Dr. Lucian in honors and said, I think this would be really cool. How could we do this? Could we do this? And he basically was like, sure, like run with it. And then, of course, my regular job duties took over. But then it was a really good thing I'd mentioned it to him because a few months later, he mentioned to me that Dr. Hansen had mentioned the similar idea to Catherine, to Dr. Wilkins. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. And what's amazing about what we set up is that both Audra and I have lived and worked in Hawaii on the Big Island. And so we have really a wealth of knowledge and connections and personal stories. So many things that attached us to the Big Island of Hawaii. We wanted to share that with students and show our students what the island could also teach them.
It's almost like you have this sort of like magical, or I don't know, this kind of like this sixth sense connection to Hawaii. Can you describe what that feeling is like? Was it something from like traveling there and like spending a lot of time there?
I would describe it in a way like that. I kind of have described it in some ways as sort of magical. And I think it was extra special because when people think of Hawaii and talk about Hawaii, a lot of people just assume Oahu, which is where Honolulu is, and that's the capital. And that tends to draw the most tourists, right, from the mainland. But the fact that Dr. Hansen and I not only were from Hawaii, but also actually the Big Island of Hawaii, and then not to have, it's a little bit of a spoiler alert, but we actually had a common connection that I had worked with and she had worked with through travel, which was, again, made a large world very small. So it really is kind of magical. And I've told some of my students and the students on the trip that I lived there in my 20s, and it was a bit of the tumultuous 20s when you graduate and you're finding yourself and you're a young professional. And I appreciated certain things, but I also redeveloped that appreciation by going back. So it was a magical time. I met some amazing people. I had some experiences I never would have had if I had just lived on the mainland after I graduated college. So yeah, I would definitely say living there was a highly magical, or had magical moments is probably a better way of putting it.
There's something about the Big Island of Hawaii, and once you get introduced to her, she pulls you in. And I'd have to say Hawaii was involved in maybe 2 of my midlife crises. I might have had 4 by now. But I was at Ithaca College for 18 years, and for 16 of those years, led those trips to Hawaii every January. And you can imagine how exciting it is for a student to be offered the chance to go to Hawaii for 3 weeks when you're in Ithaca and it's 20 below zero. Yes, the students were lined up to go to Hawaii. But once they got there, they were transformed. I have students from those trips that live there now, got married and are raising their kids. And when I go back now, I go visit them. So through those years, Hawaii pulled me in deeper and deeper until one day I quit my job at Ithaca College and I moved to Hawaii. which was probably not the smartest thing because I didn't have a job in Hawaii. I just moved to Hawaii because I had to. And I landed on the Big Island, which has always been my love, and went to the University of Hawaii, and they gave me a job teaching in 3 different units. I taught for the College of Ag, Women and Gender Studies, and Anthropology. So then I got to interact with students at University of Hawaii Hilo for 2 or 3 years until the volcano erupted, and it was kind of heading towards my house and the university. So sadly, I had to leave my beloved Hawaii, and that's when I decided to come back to USF, where my journey began as an undergraduate many years ago. We won't say how many. And that's where I fell in love with anthropology and travel. So really, I came home, and when I came home here, I wanted to share this experience with our students. And meeting Audra was amazing because in the 16 years that I ran my tours in Hawaii, I worked very closely with a native Hawaiian by the name of Eric Sills. He was really our tour guide, our mentor, our kumu, as we say in Hawaii, our teacher. And when I met Audra, I found out that she worked with Eric's wife, Jackie, and we thought, this is too strange. Because as we started planning our trip together, I told Audra, well, we have to go visit Eric and Jackie. She's like, of course, they're my old friends and colleagues. So many connections led us to come together. And then we wanted to share all of that with our students so they could see the real Hawaii. So many people travel there for a week and they just get a little glimpse. But if you go deep into that place, it will change you forever, as it has me.
It was almost meant to be. I mean, that's such a special connection and something that I'm sure really shows through as the students are going on the trip. Now, this is a study away program, and I'm having some trouble kind of understanding what is the difference between study away and study abroad.
So the study away opportunity is domestic. And so the study abroad trips, all those are international. So this is a focus on, even though Hawaii is obviously a state, as we all know, hopefully, it's far away. And I think one of the important factors of study away is that, yes, it's a state, but it has such a rich, different cultural history. And Dr. Hansen is more of an expert at it because she has literally studied it. But I think it's really important for us to remember that not just Hawaii, other places as well, we have a rich history within our own country, and we don't necessarily have to travel internationally to get some of that rich history.
So why do you believe that it's important for the Honors College here specifically to offer both study away and study abroad options for students?
I think, like Audra said, it's important to understand what's in our own backyard, too. I love global travel and advocate everyone takes part in it in whatever way they can, but we can't ignore the histories in our own backyard. Hawaii was a kingdom before we annexed it in the late 1800s, and there's still people connected to the monarchy. There are still Native Hawaiians or Kanaka Maoli people that have a lot to share and a lot to say about their contributions to our collective history here in the U.S. And if we just ignored that, I think we'd be missing part of what our role is as citizens.
I think that's so true, and I think that holds true for not just Hawaii, but also, here I learn new things about Tampa and Florida all the time, and I think we often ignore that in seeking what other countries do and looking to them for examples, whereas we can do a lot of reflection right where we are to discover more. But you guys have built this amazing program, and of course, along with the program comes some students to go on the program. So Naja, what prompted you to apply for this program?
Honestly, when I was reading through the study away program options on the Honors website, I had always been interested in going to Hawaii before, but I had seen a lot of feedback and things from locals talking about tourism and how the tourism industry is not wonderful and amazing over there. And so the focus that this trip had on regenerative tourism and culturally aware tourism was a really big thing for me, that I just wanted to learn more about the culture before I visited a place unknowingly.
I'd love to know a little bit more about regenerative tourism. What kind of topics does that include? And of course, from the name, you can think about the various things it could include. But could you expand a little bit upon that?
So I know for our trip specifically, we volunteered while we were over there. And then we also just, like I said, the culturally aware aspect of it, knowing what we're seeing when we're going over there. So whereas some people go to Hawaii and they see a volcano, we were actually able to learn about in class the different stories and different things that come with that and know how culturally significant those landmarks and those things we were seeing were for the people of Hawaii.
Is there a particular place that you visited that kind of caught your attention in that regard?
I would say visiting the volcano was a really big one for me. That was something that we were very excited to see, I think, overall as a class. And so that was amazing. And she was actually erupting while we were up there. So that was a really fun experience, yes.
How did your perspective on regenerative tourism change from before taking the class to after taking the class and visiting Hawaii? And how do you kind of carry that now as a student and as you're about to graduate?
It definitely changed how I want to travel as I continue to travel throughout my life. I wouldn't want to travel to a place where I don't know anything about the place. I would definitely want to do research and stuff before. It might not be as in-depth as this class was. This class was wonderful and amazing. But even just doing my own research and knowing the history behind the places I'm going, just I think provides a deeper appreciation when I get to see those sites and see those places.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very true. And I've noticed that with all of my travels as well, is understanding, where the people come from, what are their values, and things that we do here that are considered not as acceptable over there, and just being mindful of the people there because, they grew up there and we're just visiting. But now as you went on this trip, can you walk us through the trip a little bit, especially since there's the classroom aspect where you learned a lot of the theories and a lot about the people, but then there's the actual trip itself, and walk us through how the course is structured and how the trip happened.
So the course was structured to give students a broad overview of everything that is Hawaii. So of course we start with Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiian history, so students understand who was there before. And that story is amazing. Pacific Islanders traversed the whole Pacific Ocean in canoes, and they brought with them canoe plants and animals so they would survive in each place that they landed. And they landed in the Hawaiian Islands. And so they are visitors too, in some ways, and they made that place their home. And they built an amazing civilization and culture where they could feed over 1 million people in these amazing systems called the ahupua'a, where they grew plants and harvested fish from the mountaintops down to the sea. And think about this for a minute. This is one of the learning points that we shared with our students. Back in the day, Native Hawaiians were self-sufficient. They fed over 1 million people. They were very healthy. Many of them were over 7 feet tall, which indicates a pretty good ecosystem and farming system, which they did have. And today, if we look at the Hawaiian Islands or the Big Island, if the ships stop coming, there's only 4 days of food. Imagine what would happen and what has been happening with strikes, weather disasters, the pandemic, when the ships did stop coming and the shelves were empty in the Walmart and the other grocery stores of Hilo and the rest of Hawaii. I saw that when I lived there, when the hurricanes came through and there was no peanut butter at Walmart because the ships stopped coming in. So we want to teach students about what we can learn from ancient people and modern indigenous people too, about sustainability and resilience and survival. And so much has happened to Native Hawaiians. They died from the diseases that we introduced. They were put in boarding schools and prevented from speaking their language. And from all of that, they survived. And they kept their culture going because they have parts of their culture that we need to learn about today. We're rebuilding the ancient ahupua'a so we can grow food on the Big Island so there'll be more than 4 days of food if the ships stop coming.
That's absolutely fascinating. I think that having a course like that before actually traveling to the place that you're going should be kind of required.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Or at least, when you're doing your own personal travel, again, doing the research before you actually go, I think it can actually help you kind of immerse yourself there better. Reva, you traveled abroad to Exeter. What was that experience like that for you? Because that's not a traditional beyond the classroom program.
Right. Yeah, that was a very traditional study abroad opportunity. And I think I received some culture shocks, especially going to the grocery stores there, because a lot of their food is fresh. A lot of it's farm to table. So we have local businesses come in, and we have farmers markets every week. And then when you go into your grocery store like Sainsbury's, which is similar to Publix, the options are really limited. Like, you'll walk in and there won't be 10 cans of salsa, and you don't have a dozen options. There are sustainability rules there for recycling and composting and throwing away stuff. On the labels itself, there are nutrition guides. So they're very much more focused on, your physical well-being and holistic well-being than I think we see in the US. And I think that was a very positive shock for me, and something that I incorporated coming back here, and something that I think everybody should have the opportunity to learn. And I think I had a different experience because I didn't take a course before going there. So a lot of it was the knowledge I accumulated on my own, or very much the lived experience. But going back to Hawaii, I think it's so cool seeing those sustainable practices and seeing you kind of try to rejuvenate them or revive them a little bit. Naja, how did you kind of perceive these ancient texts, as you call it, or ancient culture, to be beneficial towards your well-being and your understanding of how the Hawaii culture is?
I think while learning about it in class, I just recognized that this is something that we could learn a lot from. A lot of these cultures and some of the practices they had are things that we could learn a lot from, even if we do them in modern ways today. So even with the ahupua'a system, I think that's something that we could really improve upon and continue to have maybe a similar system today if we wanted to get back towards that kind of what you were saying, like the more farm to table type of practices in grocery stores and buying groceries.
And there's an absolute connection between regenerative tourism and regenerative agriculture, and this concept of regenerative travel, just that we go places and we enrich ourselves, and hopefully we give back, and we learn how Native people can teach us many things, but we can also apply our modern science to it as well. So it's really that transformative experience that defines regenerative tourism, and that we want to provide to honor students, who I think are kind of the quintessential global citizens. And that's why we want to give honor students the opportunity to grow in these ways in the study abroad, but also study away.
How do you feel like you are now giving back to Hawaii as you go back there year after year?
One of the most important ways that we can give back to Hawaii is to learn about the history. Many people in the United States do not know that Hawaii was a monarchy. It had a queen. We overthrew the queen in the late 1800s, and many Native Hawaiians still carry their cultures forward. It's not the superficial luau that you see. Unfortunately, in a lot of tourism ads, there's a depth of practice and knowledge with things like luau and hula. And if you learn the depth of those as a traveler when you go there, you're really transformed into a place that's quite different from the U.S. And that's the whole point of doing study away in our own backyard, to have those deep cultural experiences.
So for me, this class, even though I live there, like Dr. Hansen, I learned a lot from Dr. Hansen. And I knew a lot of this. I knew a lot about the history and the monarchy and all of that. But this just went so much deeper. Even though it was a survey of many different topics, it still went deeper to develop that appreciation. And one of the things, there's so many things, but one of the things that stood out to me about the trip was going to the heiau, which is a temple, and they had this awesome educational video, which a video doesn't sound that exciting, but it was really well done, and the actors were great. It wasn't cheesy. The costumes, everything seemed pretty authentic, and I had driven by that. I can't tell you how many times when I lived there to go to the beach. I drove by it umpteen times, and I'd never stopped and gone. And so to make the time to go really just, again, deepened my perspective and my appreciation. And I did. On the trip, I saw it kind of coming full circle. I saw it through a whole other lens. So that's kind of the island and me. But in terms of students, one of the things I was so impressed with the group of 10 that we had, was they were genuinely engaged in everything that we did. You know, in our culture, no matter what age you are, you see people on their phones, checking out, mentally not paying attention. But the students were genuinely listening to everyone we talked to. They were asking real, authentic questions about whatever the topic was. And that was just so inspiring to me, because I knew that they genuinely cared about not just, okay, yeah, we're in Hawaii, okay, when do we go to the beach? But it was genuine interest in what we were learning, and that meant a lot to me.
Your point on reflection kind of makes me wonder, how do you see students learn and grow throughout the trip?
I always enjoy these 2-week trips because at the beginning, they're kind of strangers, even though they were in the class together. The rubber hit the road when towards the end of the class, okay, we're going to be staying in houses and you'll have to share rooms and maybe beds. So how would you like to organize that? And at first the students, even at the end of the course, are like, well, I'm not sure. I don't know if I know everyone all that well. And then when you all get there to Hawaii, you just bond as a family. And then it was just seamless, and everyone took their places, and we all helped cook food together. And you have to be in another place for that social cohesion to happen. It's so hard to make it happen in a classroom, which is why we have to get out of the classroom so we can have these experiences with each other. And we were ohana, we were family, I'd say pretty much from day one going forward. And the students were just the most adorable little pods, all talking to each other and helping each other, and huddled together in some of the evenings watching movies together. So Audra and I, we were proud teachers and parents, watching our students just fully engage with that experience, as Audra said. And we went to a lot of places and learned many different things. We learned about how the Japanese brought their rice technology into drying coffee beans in the Kona district. We went to a chocolate farm where we saw cacao pods hanging off of a tree. We picked nutmegs off of a tree at another farm and learned how they're engaging in more sustainable practices. We ate mixed plate food that talked about the history of the islands through food, with Portuguese elements and elements from the Chinese and Japanese and Native Hawaiians and Americans. And we ate Spam. So what more can we say? That's a bonding experience in and of itself, right, Naja?
So Naja, you obviously had a lot of experiences and a lot of great people to do them with. What was your favorite part?
I would say one of my favorite parts was seeing the local greenery and just the different plants and things in the environment. At one point during the trip, we went to a cloud forest sanctuary and were able to see a lot of local and native plants and the work that they've done to replant native plants on the island. So I think seeing those, and then also just seeing the greenery around as well, seeing the landscape, seeing the environment there, is honestly just so beautiful. And so all the different places that we got to go around the island and see all the different terrains and stuff was beautiful to me.
And we didn't just see those terrains, we actually interacted with them and went to the Amy Greenwell Ethnobotanical Garden, where we pulled weeds and tried to let those native plants have a little space so they can grow back. So you got to get your hands in the soil to really have the full experience.
Yeah, I think interacting with the landscape is so important. I actually recently volunteered at a garden here in Tampa, and I learned, it was very cool. I learned about different types of mulch, what weeding impacts, how weeding impacts the plants, the importance of native plants over invasive species. And I think seeing it at a small scale helped me develop an appreciation. So I can only imagine what it did for you seeing it at a large scale and seeing the work put in to kind of reinvent the idea of sustainability in our modern world. So how has sustainability and that definition changed for you over the years?
I would say as a biology major, sustainability for me is about more than just humans. It's about our impact on other organisms in the environment as well, especially in areas where we have caused different kinds of destruction to the environment, making sure that we are doing our part to help restore that, and then also going above and beyond to see not even just things that humans have had an impact on directly, but even indirectly. So I'd say in Hawaii, just seeing their focus on their connection with the land was really impactful for me, because it helped me to see just how much it matters in other cultures, and I kind of brought some of that back here. I already had an appreciation for, I'd say, our environment, but seeing how deep their appreciation is for the environment and the relationship that they have with the land is definitely something I brought back with me, and kind of fuels my passion for sustainability.
I wanted to add to that. So the Kona Cloud Forest was sort of a little bit of a surprise, because Dr. Hansen and I had pre-planned most of the trip, as you have to when you're traveling that far with 12 people. But the Kona Cloud Forest came up because we somehow magically had some room in the budget, and we're like, okay, well, we need to spend this money, and how do we want to spend this money? And she found this opportunity. We ended up getting a deal, which was fantastic. But we had a private tour. It was a 2-hour-long private tour of the Kona Cloud Forest, and for me that really was magical, and I felt like it was almost dreamlike, because in the morning, like, we were at such high altitude that it was misty and cloudy because you're in the clouds, hence the cloud forest. But what was so magical about it was not just the information and seeing all the things, but the sustainability part, where this used to be ag land where they had cattle, which is a lot of Hawaii, what it is, what it was. But just within 40 years, this area that we saw, which we didn't see all of it, but we saw part of it where the cloud forest was, they had done all that in 40 years. And because of the climate and all the rain, and it was amazing to see what could happen in 40 years.
I think travel, no matter what, can be so transformative to your personal well-being, like to your soul. You learn so many things while you're just in a different space. And I love, Naja, that you said that you kind of brought those things back, and you probably look at things here differently as well. So let's say Reva and I are two prospectively looking at the Hawaii Study Away program. Why should we apply?
People should apply to the Study Away Hawaii program because it will change their lives. You're never the same again after you experience the depth of what Hawaii can teach you as a person, and what it can also teach you with whatever your major or your minor is. There's something for everyone on the Big Island of Hawaii, and we want to take you there so we can show you in person.
I couldn't imagine having a different experience because of everything we've discussed. It just enriches it so much in a way that deepens the appreciation and deepens not just the learning, but the transformation. So part of what I think makes this trip so special is Brooke, is myself, but also not just our professional knowledge, but our personal connection to the island, because we're not just two random people taking you to the Big Island of Hawaii. We literally live there. She lived there longer than I did, but I lived there for 5 years. So she has professional experience. I have some professional experience, but also personal experience, and just talking story, as we say in Hawaii, sharing stories. That's part of what makes it so magical. And the number, we only take 10. We only take 10 students. So it's 2 vans of 5, and Naja was in my van. We had such a great van. Sorry, Brooke, not to put it down. We had such a great van. We called it the Great White. It was a white minivan. We had to come up with a funny name. But we just had so much fun. And whether they were talking with one another, talking with me, sometimes we were laughing, sometimes we had quiet, but even just those simple moments of, getting from one place to another, I felt drew me closer to my students, and getting to know each other on a different level, because with the time change, you're up at 5, 6 a.m. And so we'd be out on the balcony of one of the Airbnbs and enjoying coffee or tea or just the quiet of the morning before the sun rose. And just those extra moments of connection it's just invaluable.
That resonates so well with me. I think the bonding with my cohort when I studied abroad is something that I'll never forget. I am still in touch with them, even though I went almost a year and a half ago. We talk all the time. We plan reunions. And it's just this sort of bond that you reminisce about every time you're together, and this feeling of being outside of your natural space, right? You're never going to have that time in Hawaii, or for me, in England again, but it's having those memories and holding on to what you learned. So the last time this program happened was in spring 2025. Are there any plans to bring back the program in the future?
Absolutely. We are on board and on point for spring 2027. And we'll be teaching it on the Tampa campus. So we'll have our full semester of instruction, and then we will go for 2 weeks to the Big Island of Hawaii.
That's incredible. And we're so excited to see how the program grows next year or in 2 years. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It was a great time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, we are back in the studio. Reva, what did you think about today's podcast?
I loved it so much, Fabi. Just in the 30, 45 minutes that they were here, I learned a lot about Hawaii's culture and their sustainable practices. I had no idea about their fish farming, which was very cool to learn about. What about you?
I also, we love talking about sustainability. We could have a whole separate podcast about that in Hawaii. I really liked that point that Dr. Hansen made, that they had enough food supply for like 1 million people, like to feed like the whole island. And now with like their modern practices, they don't even have enough to withstand like a week without shipment of food. I think it's really important to learn from like ancient practices that they had in another time, in another civilization. And I think that can be really powerful to teach students like Naja.
I agree. And part of me also questions, why those traditional practices stopped. Because the way they were explaining it, it almost seemed more beneficial than what we have here. And I think our access to constant supplies of food are taken for granted here.
Absolutely.
But I'm very excited to see how this trip comes back even stronger and it attracts more students like Naja and how it continues to grow. And if you're interested in learning more about the Hawaii Beyond the Classroom Study Away program, don't forget to check out the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for upcoming events, updates, and news. That'll do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by USF students Sandra Napolitano and Valma Shah. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast. We really appreciate your feedback. Please join us next time to hear more honor stories and talk to more members of the Judy Genshaft Honors College.
Until next time, go Bulls!